pausing because of the, okay, thank you, Justin. I'm trying not to say FileMaker, but we'll together install Claris server on that Linux server. I'm just going to stop my video. And in the chat, I'm going to share some useful links. One of the most important that you will see is a YouTube video. Hopefully these come through formatted. Right there in the middle, if you open up the chat, the FM training video installation. I want to say, unfortunately, that's the best resource we have right now in this area. When I went to do this internally for Logic's own Claris platform dev server, the documentation is pretty scant out there. So just to even dive further into that, in a little while you'll see how I'm connecting to the server. In moments before this meeting, I was trying to find a better solution to do so, and you'll see that soon. And it's just it's pretty frustrating when you know how to manage a FileMaker Windows server and you're trying to translate that over, and the community is not just it's not there yet. But regardless, we will start by of course we're going to be launching an AWS Ubuntu server. I'm giving this presentation with you could already have a Linux server sitting on a box, right? It doesn't have to be AWS, but nonetheless, let me cover some important things here. Also in that list of links, I did send the links to the Claris platform tech specs. And the most important one for what I'm covering here is if we go down to Claris server, Ubuntu 22.04 LTS is the current version. The Claris server is only running with 20.04. And just to give you just some insight on the naming convention here, the year 2020, and I believe the 04 is for April. And this is LTS long-term support. I believe this comes with 10-ish years of support. So it's a pretty stable platform. I'm not quite sure, and there's probably someone in the community knows what would happen if you attempted to do this installation on 22.04. But nonetheless, the documentation states to use 20.04. And another important thing I want to highlight here, of course, the asterisk is driving you here. It's saying that Ubuntu server requires installing a display manager. When we go through these steps, of course, a lot of tunneling into this server and installing the necessary components. You're doing this through terminal. You're SSHing into the server. And you could very well, while in that command line, attempt to install Claris server, but it will throw an error if you don't have a desktop graphical user interface. And when I did this, I want to say, maybe a couple months ago, for Kio, as I said, our own internal dev server, this documentation didn't exist, or at least I didn't find it. But nonetheless, thankfully, the video I sent you from Richard Carlton Consulting, they did post that shortly after Claris platform was released. Yeah, I'm going to pause there. Does anyone have any questions about Linux Ubuntu? I'm not certain I'd be able to answer them, but maybe it'd be a discussion amongst the group. Nope. Okay, great. So yeah, as I said here, this is very quick. I mentioned earlier that I ran into an error trying to configure VNC and lost access to my server that I was building. I terminated the instance and I had a new one up and running in 15 minutes. So this is incredibly quick setting this up. I'm just going to gloss over the most important things. By default, 22.0 is selected. We've already covered this. We need to switch to 20.04. The default 64-bit 86 is thankfully selected by default. ARM is not supported. In that Richard Carlton video, they talk about, some people may intend to install this server in a container on like a Mac mini server or something. Using an ARM, the Clara server is incompatible with ARM infrastructure. Essentially, will only run on Intel-based machines. So coming down here, the server I created for this demonstration is a T3 large, just abiding by the minimal tech specs of 8 gigabytes for memory, for RAM. And then I created a key pair. I also came down here and I gave it 256 gigabytes of root volume storage. But yeah, everything else here for anyone who's administered AWS servers, opening up your ports, especially the SSH ones. This is the Keologic account, thus like a lot of that is already configured, and I just added our pre-created security groups to this. Justin, could you briefly, of course, the FileMaker ports are necessary. Are you familiar which SSH ports are necessary?
Well, for SSH, you just want to do the your IP address.
Yeah.
And then the other ports that you want to add HTTPS and HTTP traffic. Those are ports 80 HTTP and 443 for HTTPS. And then I think FileMaker also requires port 5003. And then if you have any other like SQL database that's looking into your server or anything else in other ports, then you would open up those ports as well.
Yeah, and like I said, I used Keo's security group, thus the SSH traffic isn't open to the entire world as the defaults are here, but only to Keo employees. So so I went ahead and did that, and I hit launch instance, and then we got this instance that we have here, this Claris platform CFDG. And that's running. So going through the steps I have here, oh no, that's not it. Just a moment. I have somewhere notes of all of the steps that we will go through. And here we go. We have, so once the server is initiating, of course, you would open up terminal. One step, of course, I forgot to mention, we're probably all familiar with downloading the key pair. You could use an existing one or create a new one. I created a new one for this instance. So remoting into the machine is just as simple, and I will just simulate it because I'm already remoted. I'll open up a new terminal window. We'll just type in the commands SSHI in the command, the flag I, and then you're just going to point to your certificate here, and then you're going to type in Ubuntu, which I believe is the default username that is configured, and then you would just put your public IP address. For this demonstration, we're not using a what Amazon calls an elastic IP, or what most of everyone else calls a static IP. So this one is liable to change in the future, but nonetheless, we would just plug this in here, hit enter, and then you would get, much like you see here, as you can see, I'm already remoted in, you'll get a green prompt with the Ubuntu at And that would signify that you're SSH'd into the machine. To the right here, I did run into a problem. I've ran into this problem a few times, with the key file, and you get this warning when you attempt to connect. I ran this sudo command, sudo chmod 600, and then the path to the key, and that freed that up for me. But I'm just making you aware of that if you run into that. Not entirely sure whether that's best practice doing that, but certainly worth mentioning. So yeah, so once you are remoted in, then much like what you do whenever you connect to a server, you just run the updates. So that's the first thing I did. I ran these commands, and if this is a little small, I can zoom in. Sudo apt update and then upgrade. I believe this will list the updates, and then you can just issue the secondary command to go ahead and update it. And then after those updates are applied, I just rebooted the server. So, yep. And so after the server is rebooted, there's a few commands listed here of things we're going to need. One, we're going to install a zip program. We're going to install that desktop graphical user interface, which I pointed out in the Claris tech specs, that a desktop GUI is needed. So we're installing that, and also Tiger VNC, because of course, we want some way of visually remoting into this machine when all is said and done. And that's where we're going to pick up once I get through these last few commands. And after those are installed, then we're going to do a few configuration things. Mainly what's happening here is, since Linux servers don't by default launch into a graphical user interface, we're going to set some of these commands to make that so. And that's what this one does here. Then we set the password on line 6. And then, I'll just gloss over these commands that I'm highlighting. These are just, you create a directory for the VNC to set some settings, right? And I tried to find out what these two are doing. You're disabling two settings here: unset session manager and dbus session bus address. Not sure if anyone knows what those point to, but nonetheless, those would interrupt with your VNC session. And then the last one, we're turning on auto start for the graphical user interface. Now, I'll just point out that the user interface that they were using in Richard Carlton's video was this XFC E4. There are many different shells for Linux. This is just the one they chose and the one that you will see shortly. This also, makes finding certain things on how to configure your server a bit difficult, because of course folks could be running different environments. And moving on, lastly here, we're just setting the resolution. Yep. And then, then we're doing some cleanup here. We're changing where I believe we're applying those settings here. I'm not entirely sure about that, but if you watch the video, they talk about that very briefly. And then we reboot the server again, and then it's ready for you to VNC into it. Running through these, the process of installing the graphical user interface takes the longest, and I think it probably took about 4 minutes. But applying these are super quick, and getting up into this point is pretty straightforward. Okay, so remoting into the machine, I'm just going to hide these windows. So I'm actually just going to I already have it open, but I think it'd just be more useful if we just do it from scratch. So I'm going to open up a new terminal window. Okay. And just give me a moment, just looking for my commands. So I probably already. Yep. So the first thing we're going to do, you've seen this. We're going to SSHI, use that flag. You know, this is very similar to when you first remote into this machine. Let me make this a little larger. This can be a bit confusing, but this part here is the most important part. And this is the step that I would like to go away. Much like how we're all used to just using a remote desktop, I would love to just open up a GUI program and just immediately launch into my server. But that is not the case today. But what we're doing here, the port 5900, excluding that last zero, is a Unix type port. I believe every system aside from Windows uses this port for VNC, that protocol. So in order for us to remote into this machine, what we're doing, and this is just arbitrary, this number could be anything. I'm just appending an extra zero per the video. But it could be anything, it's arbitrary, but it is a local port that you're creating for this handshake to the server's port, the server's VNC port, 5901. There's a few extra flags here, and then Ubuntu, and then the IP address of the server. So when you hit enter, you'll, you know, it took, there's no extra prompts that you'll get. And then you'll open a new terminal window, and I need to remote into the server. So I'll do that. I got my green prompt, and then I'm just going to type in the commands VNC server. So as of right now, if I ever want to remote into this server, and I hope to change this very soon, these two steps are necessary before I open my VNC client. But again, I'd be happy to share with you all in the future a better methodology, right? So there are many VNC viewers out on the market. I believe this is probably one of the most popular ones by Real VNC. But I believe using, I just hit Command K, much like in the Mac, you have this, the ability to connect to a server. And Mac has its own pre-built VNC, screen sharing client. If you've ever remoted into another Mac you had or another machine, you may have used this method. I believe it works just the same, but nonetheless, I'm just using this program. So within the program, I just, I went to launch a new server, and I'm just, as you can see here, pointing to the local host that that port that I designated, that arbitrary one again. So I'm just gonna go ahead and click on that, and you see it launches me right in. Now, I have a few things open. I'll just minimize everything. When you first launch it, this is what you'll be greeted with. This is the GUI that I installed, and I told you was the longest step in the process. But it's for any Mac user, it's fairly similar. Linux, it is a Unix based system, so you'd probably find yourself very initially comfortable. The file system is a bit different. But one thing it comes with is a web browser. If you click on it, it will open up Mozilla Firefox. So that's pre-installed. That's one less thing to worry about. What I did immediately when I logged into the servers, I just logged into platform.claris.com, right? And this is Keologic's account. If you were in the last CFG where I went over Claris Studio, be very familiar with this. Oops, sorry. Of course, I have to log in. It's been open for a while, so let's do that. Okay. So back to where we were. Some of you may have been, you've seen this quite a bit, but if we pop over to resources here, of course, we have the ability to download Claris Server and Claris Pro. One thing to note here, we only see a Mac and a Windows version for Claris Pro. There is no client version of Claris Pro for Linux just yet. Hopefully that'll change. But of course, the only version for Claris Server is Linux. I've already downloaded that. That takes quite some time. So yeah, so I've downloaded that. It's here, and I've unzipped it here. So now the interesting thing about this is you can see this README installation. This is pretty much all of the Claris documentation on installing Claris Server on a Linux machine. And that's where we're going to pick up here with Claris's instructions. So yeah, so I'm going to pause there before we get into that. Are there any questions or musings up to this point? Okay, so we will get into installing. So I'm gonna, just minimize these instructions. We're going to open a terminal session where, of course, where we're remoted into the machine that was created this afternoon. And we're just going to change directories, and we're going to go to, of course, we're going to go to that downloads folder where our package is. And let me pull up the installation again. And the first thing it's asking us to do is run a sudo apt install. And of course, the package path, which of course is our downloads folder. And here would be the file name, which interestingly enough, in their documentation, it says FileMaker server. Clearly, they're just lifting these instructions from installing FileMaker server on the Linux machine and repurposing it for the Claris server. But of course, this would be Claris server, and then it's asking for the version number and then the build number, which we have all in the file name. So we're going to run that command. So we're going to do sudo apt install Claris server, not FileMaker server. And our version is 40.0.2.19-AMD 64.db. So I'm gonna run that. Did I have a typo? Claris server 40. Unsupported file. Yeah, and here is the problem with doing live demonstrations. But the issue may be that it is requiring this zip. So let's try that instead.
Are you able to just drag it and drag it into the command line? Drag the file in?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I can. And also, okay. I'm already in the downloads folder, so let's just see what this. Oh, I think I have the. Yeah. What I think could potentially be the issue is upstream, as you can see here, I installed a zip, a zip, the ability to unzip things. but yeah, I believe it's this file here. Yeah, and you can see even here the documentation is looking for .deb.
Instead of yeah, if you do like sudo apt install and then just drag and drop the file in.
Mhm. Yeah.
Without making any changes, that should work. Or at least if that doesn't work, then there's something else going on.
It probably needs the full path.
Okay.
There
Yep,
you go.
that worked. Great. So thanks for that, Justin. So going through this, one thing you will notice very shortly is, you know, we've all done a gazillion FileMaker server installs. And you get greeted with that nice graphical interface with a few prompts that we're all used to blowing through. You will, of course, see a lot of the questions that are asked in that process in the command line here. And here we go. I'll widen this up. We're being asked to agree to the software terms. We'll okay that. And now it's asking us to create a username and password for the admin console. So I'll go ahead and do that, and I will give it a password. Okay, and we'll create a 4-digit PIN. We'll let it continue the installation. And this is the longest part of the process, but it shouldn't take too long. And Lazarus, to answer your question you left in the chat, not only will everything I'm showing today, including all of the Linux commands to initialize the Ubuntu server, I'll make those all available in a document for you all.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. It will certainly save you time, being able to copy and paste things, but a lot of the information and a few other things I'm not sharing are in that FM training video. Okay, and as you can see, the Claris server service is starting. And so in a few minutes, it will give us a link that we'll be able to click on, which is your typical local host, 16.0.1 admin-console that we'll be able to click on and look at the admin console. And as you can see, as promised, here we go. You can just go ahead and click that. It should, I'll copy and paste it. Not behaving, but we'll just go ahead and type it. Okay, and you can see here, again, this hasn't changed. You can see here, Claris FileMaker server still presented here, but this, of course, is Claris platform server. So I'll put in password. Save that. this may be new to some of you. Of course, we are logging in via where we're validating ourselves via our Claris platform ID, which I've already signed into in the background on another browser. Of course, we had it when we were looking at the downloads package. One thing to note, going, if on that page that I was showing you, there was only a download link for Claris platform. There's no download link for the license. You are validated through your platform ID. So I'll click on the Keologic team and we'll hit new. For this demonstration, we're just going to use the default certificate. We'll accept that risk. And here you are. You are in Claris server, right? This is a site a lot of you are very familiar with. I think I even showed it the last time for the other server we spun up. This is a pretty raw platform. There is no, starter database, as you can notice. But I think most things you'd be accustomed, you'd be very familiar with here. Illustrator. One last thing I will show you. Of course, once this is up and running and you set up your DNS and you're then able to connect. I will show you our other server here, our Claris platform. So here I've opened Claris Pro, not FileMaker, and we have this pointing to our only dev platform server. So the other server we have, you can see we have some AUA demo. This is from the last time. Of course we could, from here upload to a host. But if you're ever in the need to move files over to your VNC, machine, the one methodology I found is you can use this protocol called SCP, which and I'll just show it to you here without demonstrating it, where you can move a file securely from your local machine to the server. And just ask for a few commands. One, and this is just a demonstration, the location of the file, that the path to the file that you want to move. I'm sorry. This is the key. Of course, we need to connect securely, so we're issuing the key. Then the file you want to move, Ubuntu at the IP address / and then where you want to drop the file to. And you could essentially rename the file at this juncture here. And just issuing this command will move the file over, which I did earlier. Oops, go to our downloads folder, which I did here, and I just moved this .claris file over. And as you can see, this is just Linux's default icon for an executable. But of course, as I noted earlier, Claris Pro is not available for Linux, thus there's no fancy icon for it. All right, are there any questions? Is there anything anyone would like to see or discuss?
I just mentioned that I actually managed to get, I think, as a XRDP can be installed on a Linux server. So I've been using it with Microsoft Remote Desktop, which people are used to using. So you don't need to do anything in the terminal to start it up. And also you can redirect local folders to be connected as network volumes, and RDP does that for you. So uploading and downloading files via that method is quite easy. I also got SFTP working so that you can use SFTP to move files up and down. And you can also edit the ODBC definition files if you want to using that, provided you change the permissions on them, so you can do that.
Okay, yeah, that That would be super useful if you could point to some documentation where we could do that. We, of course, use remote desktop like most of the world. So being able to connect to our servers that way would be very helpful. If you could show us how that's configured, Oliver,
I
that'd
had
be
somebody do it for me, but I could ask them. So, okay. So
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that they installed one of the GNU, or what are the, I can't remember what the name of it is. They installed a particular version of desktop, graphic desktop. I can't remember which one. And then that works with remote desktop and with that protocol installed. It's still a bit
yeah.
funky, but it's a bit close to what most people are used to using. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's that, and doing all the best practice things that we're used to on Windows servers here is something that I'm certainly interested in. But as you can imagine, no one's really knocking down the door to have us set them up with the Claris platform, system. So there hasn't been much urgency on it, but it still would be fantastic to learn. So we're prepared for when that day comes.
the pricing isn't great if you have a long-term license contract. If you've got a 4-year license and you're only 2 years into it, you don't get all that 2 years back to apply to the new one. You only get about a year of it at best, I think. So you're writing off a whole year. So if you've got a 25-seat license, that's pretty expensive. I don't quite know why they've done that, but that's another discussion, obviously.
Yep. All right. So we said as kind of a part 2 of this conversation, we were going to discuss hosting options and how to deal with backups. Lazarus, would you like to kind of spearhead this conversation?
I don't have much to say, not really. I mean, the only thing that I use in addition to AWS is Linode. That's a different service at linode.com. And it's got better pricing, let's say, for the different instances than Amazon does. So it's especially good for small businesses. Other than that, it works pretty much the same. You install your what do you call it there? Your Linux version, your Ubuntu in this case, and then you install everything else just the same.
Cool. So besides AWS and Linode, has anybody used any other services? And obviously, installing on a physical machine. Has anybody used any other services for hosting? I'll take that as a no.
Well, Claris Cloud, of course, is I've used that quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, that doesn't count.
With simple clients, who don't have any IT department. And if you don't need plugins, that's fine.
Any other cloud services that, let's say, would be available to us?
I had a customer who did use Azure at one point several years back, and they were quite happy with it. It was more expensive than Amazon, I think, but I don't see why it wouldn't work. In fact, I think one of the Office 365 packages comes with access to Azure. I'm not quite sure, a business version or something like gives you one Azure server or something like that to try.
Yeah, we have a couple of clients who use Azure, but they have managed that process, the installing process on their own. So we've only used it just logging into their remote desktop. All right, so Lazarus, it looks like it's AWS or Linode are the only things that anybody here has used.
Yeah, I've got servers on both of them. as I said, Linode, the price on that one is a lot better than the AWS. And as a matter of fact, you get a fixed IP address with your installation without having to pay extra.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I think with AWS, it's actually free. The fixed IP addresses are free unless you don't use them.
Right,
If you-
unless you park them for a while there, then you
Yeah,
pay $4 or $5, right?
Yeah,
But you can have a certain amount of or number of IP addresses. I think it's up to 4 or 5, or I don't know if they increased that one.
yeah, I'm not sure about that. All right, so are there any other topics that we'd like to discuss or any other questions that anybody had or news that they wanted to share? Or shall we kind of close this up and plan for next month, Oliver sharing MongoDB?
The backups, we haven't touched the backups.
Oh, Derek, would you be able to, I would assume the backups, you would find them the same way that you would find them on a Windows server or a Mac server. There's a whole, there's a file structure in that, in the GUI there.
Yeah.
No, I'm
I
talking
think-
about, I'm talking about getting them off the cloud, not leaving them up there or backing it up there, but how do you get those files to a different backup service, whether it's Amazon, their backup service, or for example, some of the installations that I've got over there, I back up daily FileMaker backups. I FTP them to an FTP server. That's the way I figured out how to back them up.
Mhm.
On Windows servers that I have on the AWS, I just use Dropbox, really. So it backs up on a Dropbox installation. So it does the job there. But I would like to know if you have anything else for Linux. That's a little
We've done S3 backups of databases on our Windows servers to obviously on our AWS Windows servers. I don't think we've done. We don't have many Linux FileMaker servers. I don't think that we've set up an S3 backup going there. But I would imagine you'd probably follow a similar process to how you would do it on a Windows machine. Some type of I'm not sure if there with Windows, I think it's called a Windows updater. Justin Francis, do you remember what the name of the Windows scheduler is what it's called that actually will run the script for you? I would imagine there's something similar for Linux, but I don't have any experience there. So anybody else have any other experience pushing backups from a Linux server? Oh, nope. All right. Maybe we'll do some homework on that and see if we get any answers for the next time.
Yep, sounds like a plan.
All right. So any other questions or topics that anybody wanted to bring up before we close off for this month? I'll take that as a no.
Do
All
we
right.
have a date for the January meeting?
I was going to bring that up. So Oliver, as the presenter, what date would work for you? If we were to do a month from today, it would probably be the 11th, or we could do it the week after on the 18th, or we could do it on a different day if neither of those days work for you, Oliver. And you're on mute, by the way. Oliver, are you there?
Sorry, I was muted. Beg your pardon.
No
I
problem.
don't mind what day. It took an hour to run. But I was slowing down and doing things very step by step because there was a wide range of people in the audience. I didn't want to lose anybody or lose myself. So, but there were some times when I paused when I didn't need. So I could do it in about 45 to 50 minutes and leave, say, 10 minutes for questions, which I may not know the answer to, but.
That sounds perfect. you have a preference between the 11th or the 18th?
No, either one, whatever people prefer.
Okay, so opening up to the floor, anybody have a preference between the 11th or 14th? Barb, what would you prefer? Sorry, 11th or 18th?
They both work for me.
All right, we're getting a lot of thumbs up on both. Anybody have a nay on the 18th? Anybody say no to the 18th? Nope. All right, we'll do the 18th then.
Okay.
All right, perfect. Awesome. So thank you everybody for joining today. Thank you, Derek, for presenting on Linux. I think we all will want to do some more research on that topic since it's the way that FileMaker and seems like most of the rest of the world is going. And maybe we'll even revisit this in a future session, talking about some of the, I would say, intricacies that Lazarus has brought up. And maybe Oliver, if you're able to find out from the person who set up your server, how they got Microsoft Remote Desktop to work, I think that would be a great thing for us to try to tackle.
Okay, what's the screen interface, the GUI interface that you installed?
Derek, what's that called?
It is, I have it somewhere here. It's XN. I'm trying to XFCE4.
I'll write that down. So if you could post it in the chat, that'd be great.
Yeah,
I'll just,
absolutely.
is that designed to be specifically used with VNC Viewer, or will it work with any desktop?
I think it's any VNC viewing application.
Okay,
We're just using the real VNC viewer, but there are a bunch of ones out there.
okay. Okay, thanks a lot.
All right, cool. All right, everybody, thank you very much, and we'll see you in January. Have a great holiday season and New Year.
Thanks a lot.
Take care, everybody.
Cheers.
Happy holidays,
everyone.
See how it is. Bye.
Bye.